The sharpest college football podcast. This is BuckMetrics. A very special welcome to any and all of you who are first timers here visiting, referred here by myself and from Reed Wallach from my appearance on the early read. Hope you enjoy this. I'm joined as always by Robert Martin, who is in beautiful Canada. Robert, another fine week of college football. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it better than I did. I didn't have a great outcome as far as my team went.
Yeah, I was on them too. I wanted them to win that game as well. Yeah, it was some good games, some not so great games, but yeah, it was pretty good. And yeah, it has just become cold here in Canada. Normally it's 2 weeks into September. Like climate change has pushed that back a couple of weeks now, but yeah, today we're finally starting to get fall here. So yeah, it's still nice, but I like fall, and I like fall to come a bit earlier than September 20th, but that's okay.
Well, that is when fall begins, though, technically. Canada is Canada once again. Oh, sorry. I'm doing new control here. All right. For those of you who this is a first time for, welcome again. This is the glossary that we refer to throughout the podcast. Do a copy and paste of this via screen grab and refer to it throughout this episode and throughout the season. With that, we will dig into who won week 4. I'm going global here. I'm going conference realignment worked out awesome. Despite the less than ideal ending for my Trojans, that game was a fun game. It really just had the feel of an absolute event. USC at Michigan. That's really just as good as you can hope for in the regular season conference game. That's not on rivalry Saturday. Oklahoma Tennessee was what we expected, but it was again just one of those matchups that I love that game, with the exception of something we'll get to a little later. But besides that, that was another good matchup. The Big 12, it's great in that you're not just waiting around for Texas to have the really wrong game on the really wrong day against the wrong opponent and hope that something stupid happens. You've got a really competitive conference now. It's exciting. You talk to probably like 10 different smart people that know the sport, and you'd probably have 3 or 4 different teams that they would have winning the conference right now. And the ACC is absolutely nuts, but I bring up a personal little stupid thing on this. It's good to see other teams enjoy just getting a taste of exactly what Stanford is. And I don't know if you saw this. This was pretty specific within the Stanford at Syracuse game on Friday night. Early, mid third quarter, 4th and 1. I can only describe this as Stanford faked a fake, if you will. When you're faking on 4th down and it's very obvious because the quarterback's waving his arms and pretends to be audibling 5 different times and walks up and down the line, and you have 7 different guys going in motion and up and down and everything. They did all that, then they pretended to stop, and then they just ran it, and they got a first down. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, Stanford just doing Stanford things. It's so nice because when they do it to your team in the Pac-12, rest in peace, you sound like you're complaining, and now just somebody else gets a taste of that. It's the smart Alex came up and slapped you and ran away on their bike. I like the new conferences, and maybe that makes me somebody that hates the tradition, but this is much better.
No, 100% right. Games like Michigan, USC, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and again more coming this week as well. These are games that we would not get for this that USC Michigan would be replaced by USC Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
That's the replacement level. And guess what? USC Michigan is a game on at 3:30 in the afternoon on what was it? It was
CBS.
CBS, right? Yeah, CBS. USC Arizona is a game on the Pac-12 network
Yep.
at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock, right? So there's a huge difference there. And again, that was a packed big house. Again, not the greatest result for your team, but like a good game. And there's been many
Yeah.
examples of really good games that we're seeing now between good teams. And by getting rid of the kind of dreck of, oh, here's the top team versus the bottom team, we're like, okay, here's two
Yeah.
good teams. That could be the two of the better teams in the game, and good stuff happens. And yeah, like for a while there, the Big 12 was always, okay, is Texas going to blow it this week? And you were literally like, are they going to blow it this week? And it's Kansas, they're going to blow it. But like that was basically every week you're like, I guess this game seems bad, but Texas could blow it. Or is this the week Oklahoma is going to be able to do literally nothing, right? Like that game would always happen as well. But now that's gone now, because basically it's not, oh, these leagues are a lot more competitive. The Big 12 is completely wide open, as is the ACC. I think we'll talk about the ACC later, but the Big
Yeah.
12 is just crazy. Baylor and Colorado had a crazy game that was going on at night. My only complaint, and I guess at least it's currently right now, the Pac 12 is undead somehow. They're coming back to life like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Crazy stuff is happening with them. I can't even keep straight what's happening because like I woke up today and I saw, oh, these teams are deciding whether or not to go to the Pac-12, and then the next an hour later, I'm like, these teams have decided not to go to the Pac-12. So I don't even know what's happening with that. That's just insane. But there's not really a good host of games on from like that 10:30 time slot on, which is a little
Yeah,
sad for me at that. But that's a problem that can be fixed though. 100% that can be fixed. That is not a major issue. That you can reschedule stuff. People will realize there's a deficiency at the 10:30 time slot. We move stuff around. But outside of that, I've really liked this format where we're getting good teams playing other good teams. It's crazy, I know. That if good teams play other good teams, people will watch. I know that's a crazy theory. But yeah.
and to that point exactly, maybe not even good teams against good teams, like OK versus OK. For example,
Yeah.
that Baylor Colorado game, that would have been Baylor Texas. I don't want to watch that. That's not going to be close. Baylor
Mm-hmm.
Colorado was nuts. That was an
Yeah.
awesome game. It just the geography doesn't make sense, but that's fine. This is going to be week to week better football. I screwed up again. Here we go. Okay, your week 4 winner is a blurry picture of a guy catching a ball.
Well, you could it's weird. I was trying to grab a frame of this, and you can very clearly you can see the football there. The football
Yeah,
is right there in amazing clarity. I guess everything else was out of frame, but the football wasn't. That is a game-ending interception by Navy to beat Memphis, 56-44. Um, what Memphis? Some people thought that this was going to be a potential college football playoff team. Win the AAC, just knocked off Florida State last week, although that game was closer than it probably should have been. But then you get destroyed by Navy. You let Navy put up 56 points against you? That's nuts. What are you doing here? But no, shout out to Navy. They're 3-0. They take down Memphis. That's a pretty good result for Navy. Navy has been rebuilding for a couple of years. That's a great result for them. Shout out to them. I think they were they not massive? They were probably massive dogs in this game, right? It wasn't even close. I don't even know what the
it was a 2 score. I don't think it was
okay.
enormous. I think it was think it was a 2 score line. We'll say that both that Reed Wallach in our American preview actually picked this upset, and I literally thought he was drunk. I did not see this coming, but he did. And apparently, there's a history where Navy plays their best, and Memphis tends to play their worst in this specific game. Yeah, but good on Navy, and we'll get in part 2. We'll get to a really shocking statistic about Navy.
Yeah,
All right, this is easy to me, and I just got a question for you. Any idea why I have a picture of Michael Jordan here?
because he was a former North Carolina player.
And you know what? When I saw this, I saw a lot of this game, and I just thought, basketball school, basketball score, 70-50. I'm just, how can you have 616 yards and lose by 20? That is unreal. You know what the answer is? You give up 218 apex to JMU, and I've got more on that in a short while. So don't want to talk about JMU here. North Carolina, I wasn't convinced last year that Gene Chizik was a problem on defense. Jeff Collins, I thought was a good hire. Now you can insert your own joke as to how misguided that was. I don't know, leads me to think if the problem is Mac Brown. This looks like late stage Mac Brown, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things wrong here. One, Mac Brown said he was like, "Oh, if I can't get things fixed," and he's gonna you gotta take a step back. And then he was like, "No, I'm not retiring." But okay, but what? This is
But he
not
fixed it?
good. Did you? That was pretty quick. Like that was like a couple hours later. I saw this. And yeah, no, there was no defense played in this game whatsoever. Okay, yeah, you hang 50 on JMU. Okay, but then they hang 70 back on you. It's nuts. I saw a ton of highlights from this game. It was just every time, basically, they'd be like, oh, another highlight from this game. And it's just, oh, here's like a 30-yard touchdown for JMU. It's like, okay, just insane. Like, again, yeah, North Carolina has had some problems offensively. They lost their quarterback in the first game there against Minnesota. And again, I called it out then. I'm like, because remember, and I said that was my thing that annoyed me that week because he was like, oh, it's just two good teams playing off against each other. I think both of them are 1-3 now. So shout out for that. But again, you let up 70 points to JMU. Like that is, again, you know what? You want to say, oh, our offense can't quite get us there through this year because we lost our quarterback game one. Okay, that's fine. But then you don't give up 70 points to JMU. Those are two very different things. You can't just be like, this year's done because of that, but also we're going to give up 70 points to JMU. No, there is very clearly a lot of issues with this team. I think the existence of Drake may kind of papered over this, but even then, they were still not that good even last year. Yeah, this team has a lot of problems. And okay, they tried to make some comebacks here, but again, like JMU scored in every quarter. Like
Mm-hmm.
25, 28, 7, 10. They scored at least a touchdown in every quarter. Some quarters multiple touchdowns, right? Like again, and you know what? If that was North Carolina doing that against JMU, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But JMU is in a completely is a conference below you. They're in the
Yeah.
American. Like this should not have happened.
Sunbelt.
And yeah, Sunbelt. Sorry, they're in the Sunbelt. And this is the thing. This should not have happened. I don't understand how this happened at all. And there should be a lot of questions here in North Carolina. Hey, what are we doing going forward here? Because clearly something is wrong with this team on offense and on defense and just everything in between. The spread of the game was 10.5, and they didn't even get close to covering that or winning the game, let alone. I had the ten and
Yeah.
a half, and I looked at this game, I looked at the score, and I'm like, oh, cool, I've won. And it was like,
Yeah,
that was
that's
it. I've
fun.
won. Yeah.
Yep. Put that one in the fridge. And to point out before the season when we did our ACC preview, not that we were right about anything, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but the ACC is just a jumbled mess. But we both did say, hey, it might be time for Jamie Chadwell to come in. Don't know if he can leave mid-season, but he might need to save this. This is brutal.
Yeah.
All right. You're a loser.
Yeah, Kansas State. I called this out a couple weeks ago when I said these teams shouldn't be ranked, and Kansas State was one of them. Oklahoma State was another one. They're up there. People were like, Oklahoma State, they're so good. You lost to Utah's backup quarterback pretty resoundingly. So that's great. Good job. And again, it's good to see Cam Rising not hurt. But BYU though, like Kansas State, people are like, they're so good. One of the best teams in the country. BYU destroyed them. I was watching this game, just absolutely pounded them. Like it, Kansas State scored first. They went up 3-0, and then BYU scored, and then they got an interception again. They scored off that. They had a a punt return touchdown. Avery Johnson 2 interceptions there. He looked horrible as well. Like 28 pass attempts, 130 yards. This is not a particularly good team. And just because you destroyed Arizona doesn't mean like Arizona isn't good either. Just because you destroyed Arizona doesn't mean you should be the 13th ranked team. That's how this goes, right? BYU not particularly good. So,
Yeah, and for those of you coming over for the first time from the early read, just a little bit of background here. If there's three purposes of the show, it is number one to provide insight. So get ready for that. Number two, to make myself look smart. And number three, to crap on lazy opinions. And here comes one that captures all three. After Kansas State beat a horrible Arizona defense, we love the offense. Here we go. Everybody was on the train, all the lazy national reporters. Oh, Avery Johnson, that's his coming out party. Boy, here we go. Guess not, guys. Number one, didn't realize, yeah, Arizona's defense stinks this year. See, only 2 weeks prior when they gave up, 35 to a really bad New Mexico
yeah.
offense. Number two, don't sleep on that trip to Provo. Clearly, it's one of those things. It's almost like playing in Pullman, but like 1,000 times worse because everybody's sober and they're like just much more coordinated in like how annoying they can be as terms of fans. Yeah, I agree. Kansas State is okay. The other thing too, we spoke about this a little. They were rebuilding a lot, and it just felt to me that they were a little overrated only because almost like a belief in a service academy. It's they have a system they can plug and play, and I didn't. I respect the coach a lot, but this just didn't seem like the season where they would get to like top 15. Agree with you there. Avery Johnson back to the drawing board. Probably be okay, but wasn't his coming out party.
No.
All right. Victory laps. I have two victory laps here. The first one, just to pick up on the James Madison UNC game. And again, just to go to the point I just made about the lazy national opinions. I heard it already on a couple of podcasts. People giving us the scoop now. Hey, who's pretty good, Robert? Alonzo Barnett III. Great. Guess who told you that literally 1 week ago? 1 week ago on this podcast, Robert. I highlighted my top 10 Apex, and guess who was at number 8? Alonzo Barnett. I said, great job, Bob Chesney. I love what you're doing here. This is a great sign. Then when I previewed the JMU at North Carolina game, I said, look, this guy, this quarterback is for real. And in case you missed it, North Carolina is having a very difficult time on pass defense. There's one victory lap for me. Any comment on that? We've kind of covered JMU and UNC already.
Yeah, no, I'll point out that you're showing the slide there from last week. My model also just had JMU outright. Yep, nope, not even. Don't even need a 10. I obviously took the 10 because why wouldn't you? But yeah, like it was just we were all over that one. That was a really great call from us on that.
Yeah. Then the other victory lap is the other side of the quarterback equation. Again, when we were previewing Tennessee at Oklahoma, I said, look, this game is just an absolute mismatch from the quarterback position. I said, look, this Jackson Arnold guy he doesn't have it. I'm curious, Robert, too. When a guy is just so bad in game time, is he good in practice? Are they not practicing the right way? Why is it that some guys basically, like a Lincoln Riley, just to brag a little bit, how is it he always gets the right guy, except for maybe Spencer Rattler? But aside from that, and not that he was horrible, he was just like not awesome like everybody else. How is it that he can know, all right, this guy's got the goods in practice? And then you have something like this where I've got 3 games where he absolutely stinks, and then I'm going to give him a 4th start against by far the toughest opponent that we have. I don't get it, but didn't surprise us. We called it out. He had bad games against Houston's a good pass defense. Tulane's feisty. When you're doing this against Temple, that's a problem. Temple doesn't even want to play football as a school, and you're basically Connor Bazelak against them. I will say I left that game a lot more bullish on Oklahoma in that they actually have a possible quarterback now with this Hawkins Jr. kid. Much more better as a passer, very mobile. The team just rallied behind him. Maybe just very lesser version right now of Caleb. Just the team just rallied behind him. Um, Arnold was a negative 39 apex in the game. Just horrible. If this guy's anywhere halfway near the goods, this Hawkins kid, the defense is always going to be there. I think 25 will probably be the lowest output that Tennessee has until we get to the playoffs. They're not that far off. And like we said, it's a tough season for them. They're in a transition on the offensive line. But I would not even look back. I would just say Jackson Arnold coming to a Conference USA team near you next season and just go with this Hawkins Jr. kid.
Yeah, that's kind of my assumption based on that. To be fair, again, this game the final score looks a lot closer than it actually was, right? 12 points in
Yep.
the 4th quarter. This game was just a decimation from the beginning, and Tennessee very clearly just said, we're done. We don't need to take our feet off the gas here. They brought it. I'm assuming that's it for Jackson Arnold. Maybe they're just like, oh no, we want to give him time to recoup or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that kind of seems like it's Michael Hawkins Jr.'s team now. Because again, one of the cool things about the new realignment is, guess what? Now you get to play Auburn next week, right? Before it's, oh cool, you played a really good game. All right. Now go play like, I don't know, Tulane or something. Or not even Tulane, it wouldn't be Tulane. Go play Kansas, Baylor. Go play Baylor. That's fine. But now it's, oh yeah, now go play Auburn. So you have to figure this out now. This is, again, and we had talked a bit about this in the off season. It's becoming more like the NFL, but in a good way. This is, teams are going to be able to lose games and
Mm-hmm.
you can still, like in the NFL, like you lose games all the time, right? Like Kansas City, one of the best teams in the NFL, won 2 straight Super Bowls. Both seasons lost 5 and 6 games, right? Totally fine. You could lose a game in the NFL. That's totally fine. Doesn't mean your season's over. But in college football, you lose a game, that's it. You're done. No way you're going to make the college football playoff now. You're done, right? This is the change we're seeing now, because it's okay. You lost a game, but you lost against an actually pretty good team. So you're okay. And with the 12-team playoff, guess what? Losing a random game isn't going to doom you. That being said, Oklahoma, they're definitely doomed. That's not the point. But the point is that you can lose games and still make it.
Yeah. One other real quick point on that, just because you mentioned it comes up with Tennessee specifically, was on a business call about a week ago, and the topic of the podcast came up. The guy actually grew up in Knoxville, and he said the problem with Tennessee is that they don't realize that they're a 9-win team. And I said, this is interesting. 9 wins will get you in the playoffs if you're an SEC team. So maybe the playoffs actually may take Tennessee from being just a constant dumpster fire, and just they can be happy with their place in the universe because it's basically more often than not going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
So the playoff making Tennessee actually stable somehow, unexpectedly.
Tennessee, Penn State, a bunch of teams suddenly stable.
Yeah. Auburn, though, is beyond help, and we'll get to that in a moment.
We will get to them. Yeah, look at this. So we called this. We were like, we're basically, since Illinois beat Kansas, we were pretty high on them. I was on them last week against Central Michigan, and I said on the podcast last week, I'm like, I saw Illinois +9 versus Nebraska. I said that spread is wrong. Bet the 9. Said that's it. I'm not touching my line. I think Nebraska still wins the game, but 9 is too many points. And I actually think that was like exactly the right call. I think Nebraska probably should have won this game, And it should have been an Illinois cover Nebraska win. But we were high on this team. And again, this is exactly what I just said last slide. Maybe I should have said that, save that for this slide. But you can lose a game and you're still okay. Nebraska is still fine. But man, Illinois though, I know because of the way we do polling, Nebraska has to be dropped from the top 25. It just has to happen. It's out of my control. I don't decide this. Although until next week when we unveil our top 25, in which case I will decide it. But that's beside the point. Illinois and Nebraska could both make the college football playoff. Like 100% they could. They are two really good teams. And Illinois plays Penn State this week. That could potentially straight up be for a college football playoff berth. Like just straight up, right? So like Illinois is for some reason 17 and a half point underdogs. Like I literally saw that I logged into my sports book Sunday night and I was like, that's wrong. And I just immediately bet that, just like I did last week. Yeah, Illinois might actually be really good. I think they were really good 2 years ago. They would have made the equivalent of the college football playoff 2 years ago. Last year they
Yeah,
had a
they would have.
down year. The last year they had a down year, and I was like, okay, we see this all the time. Have one good year with a couple good players, they leave, you go right back down to where you were. And I was like, okay, that's it, downswing. But they have come right back. And they are actually a pretty good team this year. I think people are going to say, oh, Nebraska wasn't actually that good. They just beat Colorado. They were actually that bad. But no,
They're good.
we're high on Nebraska. And I'm like, now I'm even higher on Illinois because now I think Illinois is actually really good. So like right now, this is, oh, that's it for Nebraska. They're bad. No, I think we're going to look back at this and say this was actually two really good teams that played off against each other on that Friday night.
This is basically the antithesis of the whole PJ Fleck two good teams. No, this is the real
Yes,
version of it.
yes,
This
this is
is
the real version of
actually
it.
two real good teams. Yeah, this is in Illinois. I don't know if you remember, I had Illinois over, I think, 6 wins last season. This is what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Good quarterback play from Altmaier. And I think they probably just took a year to transition on defense away from Ryan Walters. And just that was last year was the new DC's first year. Maybe he had a learning curve there too. They're just, yeah, they're looking not nearly as dominant, but, you know, like a reasonable facsimile of that team, that really good team 2 years ago. All right. My overperformer of the week. I got to give it to Michigan. I, boy, it's gonna be hard to get this one out. I will just say this: they made everything they could out of having a very limited offense and having just the right favorable matchup between their defensive end and the topiary statue at USC's left tackle position. And they only really had the advantage for about 35 minutes. Basically, for the first 25 minutes of the second half, USC basically did very well on the offensive line, but Michigan just they got all they could out of just that advantage, and they were pretty much stopped. This is crazy. Aside from 3 plays, they didn't do much. So on three, they had 3 long runs for 157 yards, and those absolutely happened. But after that, but aside from those three, they had 133 yards on 43 plays, 3.1 per play. So aside from 3 plays, you got really zero on offense all game. But you made the absolute most on 3 big plays. Every one of those went for a touchdown. You pressured the quarterback into a pick six. They got it. A 5 point home dog. They got my overperformer. A couple other things on this game. I will just for now say a very interesting welcome to the Big Ten in terms of officiating, and I'll get to more of that in a second. Very impressed by Miller Moss in that after this is his first road game. I think we saw a little element of one of my angles that I like to pay attention to, that first conference road game. And in that position, he throws a pick six, and that really can be just it for a lot of freshman quarter or new quarterbacks. This is his fourth career start. And right on the next possession, he marched him down for a touchdown. That says a lot. That's not an easy place to play, and that's a good defense. The offense stinks. Miller Moss showed me a lot there. I don't think Michigan is that good. And here's what's weird now. In the old 14 playoff, if you lose once you lose your first game, you are basically building a shrine every week to the team that beat you, just to tell the college football world this team is maybe the best team in the country. Of course, we lost to them. This is an impossible spot. Now, as we actually USC might be in a battle for a playoff spot, I hope Michigan goes 2-10. I don't need them to be strong. I need them to be out of the picture because push comes to shove, they're gonna if it's close, they get a bit ahead of USC. Didn't anticipate this coming into the season, but one of those new dynamics of the 12-team playoff. So, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no, 100%, right? I think it was a tough loss. They got everything out of there. I think there is a little bit of adjustment for, and for Michigan, for USC, Oregon, potentially, as because they're not really that used to traveling that far of a distance. That's a pretty far distance to travel from the West Coast to Michigan. Texas came in. That's not as bad. That's only, I think, about a 3 to 4 hour flight. That's a lot further from California, and the time change as well. I think basically an hour for Texas is not really a big deal, but for this is a 3 4 hour time shift. So I think there are a lot of contributing factors to this. But again, this is not one of those where it's like, all right, that's it, game, like, season over. No, this is still on. I think with Michigan, I think one of the things is that when in the loss to Texas, they decided that they were still going to try to do forward passing, but here they're just like, nope, screw it, we're just going to go full Army, go the full Army. When you do Army, you go full Army, and they did that basically. I think they threw what 7 passes or something insane like that, and it worked, right? They wore down the Michigan defense, they wore down the USC defense, they got those big plays off, and that was the game plan, right? They went full Army and it worked, right? I think there is, again, once you go up against Ohio State, I'm not sure they play Iowa or not, but they definitely will play some more Big Ten West teams. That's not going to work so well against them, right? You're gonna have a lot harder of a fight against some of those other teams that are built to stop the run. USC has never really had to deal with we're just going to run and we're big and we're strong and we're going to run like 40 times this game, right? And I think that's a bit of an adjustment. But again, just because you lose a game like that does not mean you're out. Losing like a second game, that's where it can get a little concerning. But again, losing one game does not eliminate you. So USC is still very much in this. Like, honestly, the entire college football world this year is this is a really weird year. Georgia almost losing to Kentucky there as well. The only one that's really looked good is Texas. I am slowly becoming like, my model weirdly doesn't like Texas, but it's wrong because Texas hasn't played a conference game, and that's really important to my model. So that's why it momentarily doesn't have Texas number one, but I'm fairly sure it does love Texas. It does actually really like Texas. But I'm slowly turning on to Texas just has a ton of talent, and they might be one of the best teams in the country. I think they might actually
Yeah.
be. So yeah.
Yep. All right. You're overperformer. I don't. Which side of this is the 35 points that the Wolfpack put up?
Yeah, no. The thing is, again, a lot of that was garbage time. This one was the other kind of blowout in the ACC. This is just Cade Klubnik running here from basically midfield, completely unopposed, as you could see here. Just this was a 45-yard touchdown run. The thing is, the one knock we've had against Clemson the last kind of couple of years has been their offense has not been good. And the reason we say that is because their offense has not been good. It really hasn't been good. But the last couple of weeks, they've actually been doing stuff, right? Now, this is not, I'm not saying, all right, guys, that's it. Clemson is back. They're going to dominate. They're going to be one of the top teams in the country. Watch. No, I'm not saying that. I am saying that, okay, they are a top team, and based on the absolute dumpster fire that the ACC is this year, being okay might be it. I would be concerned about 35 points on defense, but 21 of those came in the final quarter when you were basically putting in backups and you were already up 50. You already had 59 points, so you didn't really care that much. But again, Clemson is not bad. And me saying that they're not bad might mean that they're one of the best teams in the ACC, because the ACC is just an absolute dumpster fire. From Florida State literally imploding, to SMU also imploding, to NC State also imploding, to Virginia Tech also, it's just bad. Pick any team could win this thing that doesn't already have 3 losses. If you don't have 3 losses, you could potentially win this thing straight up. I don't even
Yeah.
know where this is going, but the ACC is just an absolute mess.
Yeah, I'm suddenly not so sold on the Clemson defense. They gave up more points to App State than South Alabama did. They basically gave up almost the same amount of points to NC State as Western Carolina did. Not where I expected this to go, but you know what? That fits in completely with what the ACC is today. I Who knows? All right, my underperformer is just I'm just going with crying coaches here. Tom Haddock, you literally had the entire college football world in love with you after that win at Notre Dame and just this awesome interview. And you just lay a giant turd and you lose to Buffalo is just in the middle of a huge rebuild. They have a good coach, but he ain't that good. Your team is just way better than this. This is just, and clearly this is a segment about what bet am I most smart and most about losing, and this is it. NIU should have just crushed Buffalo. Losing overtime as a 14-point favorite. Good job. I guess the one thing is they probably got a little bit of a sandwich game in that they're coming off that win at Notre Dame, and then this week they have NC State. Probably took it for granted, but when you're that much more physical than your opponent, it shouldn't even be close.
Yeah, and that's a game you need for MAC conference play too. So
Yeah, that's a real killer. Yeah. Go ahead.
this is a missed 31-yard field goal to set it to triple overtime, which is just the 2-point conversions. Yeah. First of all, this is a large underperformance by the 7th-ranked team in the country. They were, I think, like 17-point favorites in this game. It was definitely more than needed double overtime to beat Vanderbilt. And it's not even like you scored a touchdown in the second overtime. You kicked a field goal and you had to pray that they didn't beat you, right? That's not great. Now, again, Missouri, still a good team, and I have no idea what this Vanderbilt team is. This Vanderbilt team is apparently just going to be randomly competitive every other week. But, yeah, just that's an underperformance right there. And, like, to say this Missouri team is, like, super, super dominant, they had a close call against Boston College, but Boston College might, like, actually be good. So that's a little less relevant. But, again, now underperforming against Vanderbilt, that does question. And Boston College did just narrowly beat and they covered the teased down spread against Michigan State, which isn't the greatest sign. So maybe Missouri might not be that good. Like, I wouldn't have them as the 7th-ranked team in the country, but they probably are. But I think they may not be that good.
Yeah, they seem almost itching to lose a real dumb one at some point before too long. All right, your life is so good that you gave me this one. Things that annoyed Robert / Buck this week. And again, I don't want to complain about the officiating too much. I'll just say this. I'm going to frame this a different way. In the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, let me have
Pointer, there we go.
this right here was called roughing the passer. And literally it was because this is the most contact it was. The defender's hand just hit the helmet. Just hit the side of the helmet. Just a tap on the side of the helmet. And that was called roughing the passer. And I literally, Robert, I thought I was going to have a stroke because my team twice had this happen where just when they're tackling they're tackling Miller Moss, you see what that is? That's a hand of the defender. You see what that is? That is a finger, many fingers squarely around the face mask. And this happened twice. Once at the end of the first half, where if it had been called correctly, would have been an untimed down with a 41-yard field goal attempt for USC. That's it. That's it. I can't say anything more. This is what annoyed you through me. I don't want to complain too much, but that was a tough one to take. Just the Oklahoma game, when I saw that, I was beside myself. All right. The Nardizzi Award. For those new people, this is where we give an award for just exceptionally dumb stuff that typically coaches do if it's not one of us doing something really dumb. But I have a great nominee this week, I can tell you that. I love this one. I have a feeling that we're looking at a return visitor to this award here. Auburn, good apex of 44. Hey, congratulations on that. And Hugh Freeze, I think he's got it solved here. He's just nailed the problem exactly. Basically, with this quote after the game, he says, I know there's people open, and I know they're running the football. We just need somebody to throw it. Somebody that won't throw it to the other team. We need people that can hold on to the ball. Gee, Robert, it's almost as if somebody would have said, hey, that was a problem before the season. Might I remind you who did? What do you see here when I previewed the SEC conference, specifically the Auburn Tigers? What is different about this preview than every other team that I previewed this season? What do you notice that's circled there in bright, thick red?
That, like, all the teams they're playing have good quarterbacks.
Yes. And guess who doesn't have a good quarterback? That was my entire outlook. Basically began and ended with this team sucks at quarterback. It was unanimous. You, me, and Brendan all said they suck at quarterback. Brendan was a little more realistic generous in that he might have some upside, although Brendan saw Peyton Thorne up close and personal at Michigan State, and so he knew that there was a limit there. But it was just literally, this was a surprise to nobody except, I guess, the entire market who said, 7.5 is a good number of wins for this team. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense. They were supposed to win this Arkansas game, by the way. That was supposed to be one of the easy wins. But guess what? Arkansas has a quarterback. He's not even that good in the SEC. He can't hold on to the ball. He started off 0 for 5 against a bad team last week or 2 weeks ago. He fumbles all over the place, throws a bunch of incompletions and interceptions. When he does complete it, at least it's explosive plays and they can run the ball. And guess what? That was one of your easier games this season. You're in trouble now, and now you get Oklahoma, who actually you might have been on even terms with if Jackson Arnold was the QB, but now they actually have a functioning quarterback, so you're in trouble there. I again, just going back to the whole thing about Oklahoma, how can a quarterback be so bad and then just be a surprise to the coach? How could the coach be looking at the position when you and I look at Phil Steele for 10 minutes on this team and say,
Yeah.
the QB position is a disaster? It will not work. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe they're too close to it and they can't see just objectively. This guy stinks. Our quarterback position is terrible. And Robert, we've talked about it before. But you know what? It needs to be brought out that Hugh Freeze completely screwed this up. And speaking of Hugh Freeze completely screwing it up, I don't know if you saw this from Bo Wallace. He was the quarterback for Mississippi when Hugh Freeze was the coach there. He just took Freeze to town. Basically, just a couple of these. He just shreds him here. Basically saying, hey, every time that Freeze wins, it's just me, all this I did. Basically, Bo Wallace says, yeah, my son won't be playing for him at any point in time. I love this. Bo Wallace saying, he never helped me a day in his life. Have you ever heard a quarterback say that about his head coach? Yeah, I'm tired of him blaming the players. Hugh Freeze, I don't know. We've hit on it before, just in terms of the Auburn quarterback position, but Freeze just needs to be called out. Now he's blaming the quarterback. That's
Yeah.
your quarterback. You had the entire offseason to fix it, and you didn't. And I'm just going to hand it off to you at this point. You had a great
Yeah.
find on here.
Actually, this was out today. Just late tonight, actually, just this afternoon. Hugh Freeze on Tiger Talk, he said, I love Sam Pittman and I hope he wins the rest of his games. But I'm telling you that the hard truth is that if we play them 9 more times, we'd beat them 9 more times. That's what's hard to take. So, couple of pointers here. One, you lost. Now, okay, yes.
By 10 points, by two
Yeah,
scores.
you lost by 10 points. And yes, shout out to Stats of War. He puts out stats on Twitter. Technically, basically by success rate, technically Auburn was slightly more successful than Arkansas. Slightly, not 90-10 successful, not like absolute blowout where if they played 9 more times. So basically a toss-up game. But again, you lost by 10. You lost by multiple scores. You had 4 interceptions, another fumble. To say, oh no, you know what? They only beat us because they got lucky. And if we play them, like, what are you doing here? This is insane. And go back 2 slides to that schedule here, because I want to point this out. So we both bet gleefully the Auburn under here for the season win total, and basically that you're right. Like they for that win total, they're supposed to beat Alabama A&M. They did. Cool, that's fine. They're supposed to beat Cal. They didn't. That's a problem. They're supposed to beat Arkansas. They didn't. That's a problem. They're 2-2 now. Now you go against Oklahoma, a ranked team. Georgia, good luck with that. Missouri, good luck with that as well. Kentucky, a team that played really close to Georgia. Vanderbilt, no idea what that game is. Louisiana, ULM, apparently actually a half decent team this year, aside from when they got destroyed by Texas.
That's not going to happen, though.
Probably not going to happen, but okay, now we're at 3 wins. The
Yeah.
total was 7.5, guys.
Give
And then
him,
you got
4. Give him
fine,
give him Vandy. Even give him Kentucky.
fine. Here we
5.
go. We're up to 5 wins. You're not going to a bowl, guys. That's a
Yeah.
problem. We could give you Vandy and ULM, and we'll give you Kentucky. Sure, why
Kentucky.
not?
Yeah.
You're up to 5 now. That's 5 wins. That's 3 wins under your basically season win total. Again, and this is the thing. You're blaming your players, you're blaming your quarterback, you're the coach. You had all season. You were the head coach last year, and bad stuff happened. And if you weren't sitting there thinking these people are all the problem, maybe I should replace them. That's on you. You saw the New Mexico State game where you lost to New Mexico State. If you came from that game thinking Peyton Thorne's our guy, that's a problem. That's on you. If that's what your take is, that, oh no, we're fine, Peyton Thorne's our guy and we're great. No, you had all off season. You don't get to sit here and blame, oh, it's just our guy doesn't throw to other teams. He was throwing to the team. He was throwing to the wrong team last year. Your running backs, the same. This is the thing. You can't blame them for your own incompetence. And that's the stage we're at, where he's just trying to randomly blame other people. And it's sad. It's really sad to see it, but that's where we're at here in this. And again, this might end pretty soon. right? Auburn, notably very patient with head coaches. But the thing is, they probably owe him dump trucks full of money, so they probably can't fire him quite yet. But
They're
again,
still paying Harsin. They have to still be paying Harsin.
that actually, you're right. They probably are still paying Harsin. But this is the thing, right? It's I'd fire him, but I don't have tens of millions of dollars required to fire him, right? This is the thing. We called out this hire initially. We said we don't think this is a good idea because we said the reason you're doing this is because you're hiring a guy to beat Nick Saban, and we even said at the time we're like, okay. At some point, now actually, I alluded to Nick Saban just straight up dying before he left Alabama, but he actually just said, "Screw it, I'm done. I'm going to go be on ESPN now every Saturday instead of coaching." But you hired a guy to beat Nick Saban, and he just left. He's like, cool, I'm done. And what was the point? The whole point you hired this guy for was to beat Nick Saban, and Nick Saban's gone now. Now he can't beat anybody else. That's the problem here. And you're just starting the SEC schedule. That was actually your first SEC team. You also lost to the ACC team, the Pac-12 team, no one else wanted. This is bad. This is really bad. And now you get to play Oklahoma and Georgia, two of the best teams in the country. Like, good luck.
Two things. Yeah, the bad stuff happened. I think that's just what the name of this Hugh Freeze tenure at Auburn is going to be. Also, I just looked up my post-game win expectancy was actually 60% for Arkansas. So I definitely take issue with the 9 out of 10. So
Yes.
with that, we get to your Narduzzi Award. I can't imagine what this is.
Yeah, look at. So I was watching this game. I was watching this game live. So I'm like, great. I've got Colorado under 5.5 wins. This is going well. They're down 7. So the play before it, so it follows top left, top bottom left, bottom right. So the play before, Shedeur Sanders throws it to a wide receiver. He's about 5 yards out of the end zone. It basically bounces off the wide receiver, and I'm like, all right. He got insanely lucky there. Missed the pass because it was a bit mistimed, but whatever. They're never going to get that lucky again. You can never find two wide open people on basically a Hail Mary. That never happens. And you can see there, it doesn't matter. Basically, this is functionally an untimed down. I think there's 2 seconds left on the play clock. So they hike the ball. That's it. It's the last play of the game. You can see Shedeur Sanders there standing at the 50-yard line, just throwing it down to a guy in triple coverage, which apparently they just decided to, we're going to stand beside him, not in front of him. Hey, there's a guy in the end zone. Do we need to cover him? Nah, not really. It's fine. It takes so long for the ball to go 50 yards. You couldn't have gotten in position here, and you leave this guy wide open. He makes the catch. All right, fine. We're going to overtime. And then down here, Colorado scores in their first possession. Okay. And then you've got this guy. You got this running back. He's running in the end zone right here. And then as he's crossing the plane of the goal, he fumbles the ball through the end zone. We've talked for a while about Baylor being in trouble and Aranda being on the hot seat, and yeah, it's not
This doesn't
good.
help.
No, this does not help. And Colorado should have lost this game. And people are like, "Oh, Colorado's back. They're a really good team." And I just literally I looked on my phone. I'm like, "All right, who are they playing next week?" I'm like, "Oh, UCF. Okay, they're gonna get absolutely destroyed. This isn't gonna be close." So I mean, enjoy your 1 week of whatever, Colorado. You definitely shouldn't have won this game. There's no way you should have won this game. Good luck. Enjoy the next couple of weeks because now you're going to play actually half decent Big 12 teams, and UCF is actually really scarily good this year. They're going to absolutely
Yeah,
annihilate you. So have fun
we've
with that.
we've hit on them. We've hit on them before in part
Mm-hmm.
two about they have scary numbers, and I think this could be the time to bite. All right, we've this is a new segment. When we previewed this is I don't remember this ever happening before because I usually am very slow to react, and even when I am slow to react, I'm completely different on basically what I think the ACC was before the season. You and I were talking, and we thought, geez, let's just ask Josh, who did our ACC preview with us, and said, I have no idea what's going on here. Let's just guess right now. Who do you have now in the ACC title game? And what's interesting is none of us have any of the teams that either of the teams that we had in the title game before. I think in the boy, this I'm literally just why I hesitate to even say anything right now is just the hesitance I have had coming into the season. I'm picking Tyler Shuck staying healthy for the first time literally since 2000 against Mario, just not doing enough Mario things to get into the title game. Now I will say, I think when he at Oregon would get into the title game is because things were so dumb at that point in the conference that just they could just stumble in and overcome like a couple of Mario days. You, on the other hand, I can't say I back either of these, but make your case.
When you said to do this exercise, I was originally going to go with something funny. Oh yeah, like Utah will win the ACC, and then you're gonna be like, but Utah's not there. I'm like, oh, they feel like they should be an ACC team. But honestly, I have no like anybody like straight up. Louisville is a good pick as well. I'd say Louisville might be a slightly better pick than Clemson. But I actually do really like Boston College. I think they're actually very legit. And again, we're at a point now in the ACC where, hey, are you legit? Yeah, okay, then you could potentially win this thing. That's it. That's the level here. Where it's, hey, are you okay? Then yeah, you could potentially win this thing, right? I have a lot of question marks about Clemson. Miami is a giant question mark. Miami is one of the top ranked teams in the country. Sure, okay, but their win is against Florida. They destroyed a Florida team that is not ranked. Texas A&M is also ranked. Their number one, their basically best win has come from they lost close to Notre Dame and they beat Florida, another non-ranked team. Which is weird. There's a lot of teams that their only signature win is beating Florida, and then they're now ranked, which is weird. But whatever. That's a topic for another day. But no, like I don't believe in Miami. I think we all know what's going to happen. It's going to collapse at some point. There's something bad will happen, and I'm just waiting for that time. Because again, like I'm not viewing a win against Florida as particular. Yeah, you won at home. Yeah,
No.
they also just destroyed. They got destroyed by Texas A&M at home. So I really undercount that. I think Boston College they actually destroyed Florida State. Right. This wasn't like Georgia Tech where they narrowly beat Florida State or Memphis where they actually just straight up destroyed Florida State, and they were very competitive against Missouri, one of the top SEC teams. So that's why I like Boston College here. And again, like I'm indifferent. You can make any call you want this way, but that's why I like that call.
Yeah, what's interesting too, so in the preseason, this is just like in 4 weeks, we had one, two, three, four different teams between the three of us. And we have none of those four teams right now. It's not like I looked at your pick and said, God, Robert nailed it. Or you looked at mine and said, yeah, Buck really got it. We're all like, yeah, everybody stunk on this. One other point on the ACC. I think that the only way that they get more than one bid is Clemson has to keep on playing the way they're playing now. That's the only path that they have because they need to either do that and win and have a good runner up that they beat in the title game, or basically they keep on playing like that and they lose in the title game, but they have a good track record after that Georgia game. I think that's the only path, right?
It's one loss Clemson, undefeated Louisville, or one loss Clemson, one loss Boston College. But even then, because the argument's going to be like, okay, Missouri didn't win the Big DS, assuming in that case Missouri doesn't win the SEC, it's hard to justify that because then you're going to be like, they didn't, they lost to a team, but that team isn't even in the playoff either, right? And then you can make the argument for Clemson potentially, but I just think it's real. If Clemson were to lose the SEC championship game, and you could be like, they were good most of the season, they lost to Georgia, they lost to the ACC winner. Maybe you could put them in, but again, if that 12th seed is USC, who was like really good, and the one loss was they lost to Michigan, and who else did they play? They play Michigan and
LSU. They beat
LSU.
LSU.
Yeah, they beat LSU, right? So if they no, because play Michigan, and they who else do they play in the Big Ten? Do they play Ohio State or
Penn
Oregon? They play
State, Nebraska.
and they play Oregon, right?
No. Penn
No,
State,
okay.
Nebraska, and Notre Dame are the three toughest games left.
So yeah, if they beat Penn State, lose to Nebraska or something like that, and their losses are to like Michigan and Nebraska, are you really going to take Are you really going to take a two-loss Clemson who lost to Georgia and Louisville over a
Hmm.
Michigan and Nebraska loss or a Michigan and a Penn State loss? That's where this gets a little
This
iffy, right?
this is where I really wish that Fox had some of the playoff games. I'll just put it that way. They could exert some influence on behalf of the Big Ten here. All
That's
right.
probably relatively soon, but
Yeah, true. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this one. This is just, I've never seen anything like this where just an entire conference got turned upside down and just within weeks. All right, noted for future reference. Like I said, the Clemson defense, not really buying it just yet. In FBS play, they're getting about 5.5 yards per rush. That is a problem. And Florida State, offensively, boy, this is weak in the trenches. 2.1 yards per rush. We've talked about the AC, so won't really throw anything more to you on that. But this next one is fascinating. We'll have more about this guy in part two. But Blake Horvath, the Navy quarterback, 192 passing yards, which is almost 100 more than Alex Orji of Michigan State plus Cade McNamara of Iowa. I could see basically Iowa and Michigan being on the butt end of that joke. Wouldn't have had Navy as the punchline, though, would you?
No, that's insane that he has more passing yards than the Michigan quarterback and that's the Michigan starting quarterback too, right? Because the other guy got benched, right? Davis Warren got benched, so that's the
I
starting
don't even.
quarterback.
Yeah, what do you? I don't. Did Michigan starting quarterback doesn't mean anything at this point?
Yeah, like yeah, that's a good point. It's a meaningless title. It's just a person who hands the ball off. It's like Air Force quarterback. It's the same thing. It's the same position. And yeah, Cade McNamara, Iowa's been okay on offense. Not okay is a huge improvement for them compared
Well,
to
they have a good
abysmal.
running game now, at least.
Yeah, they have a good running game at least. They've also gone the full army. But yeah, Navy quarterback lighting it up compared to Michigan and Iowa. It's hilarious.
All right, and then I got one of the things that we do is we live in the on the fringes and we specialize. And guess who's really bad that people aren't hip to yet? A couple of examples here. Wyoming with just 244 yards and 60 plays at North Texas, who has the eighth worst defense in FBS. Wyoming, I just don't think the market is up to just like how just horrible they are on offense. And equally bad, Southern Miss, this is almost the exact same numbers here in terms of yards and plays. Jacksonville State. You remember how bad Jacksonville State just got absolutely just boat raced in their opener against Coastal Carolina? They've had serious problems. These are two horrible offenses. I'm just going to be curious to see, and it's going to be less of it'll be more curiosity and less of an opportunity now that we are metrics. But if you're just playing instinct, or just if you think where the market's off, look at these two teams in terms of just they stink on offense. They're absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it's and again, this is what a lot of people don't really do this. A lot of people focus on a lot of people are NFL guys and then they focus on the big college games, but we're like this team is really bad and people haven't realized they're that bad yet. And like, that's I think the strength of our metrics where it's this team is really bad. We should bet against them. Where like people will see a spread of 14 and a half, big spread. We're like that's not enough. That's nowhere near enough, right? That's what we do. And I think that's again one of the favorite things in my model is sometimes I'll look at a spread and be like, people be like, that's a big spread. I'm like, it's not enough, not even close. Couple more scores on top of that, and you're starting to get close. That's what I love about my model.
Yeah. Probably less of an opportunity on this one, App State, because they were on what they call an island game. I think that was Thursday when they played
Thursday night.
South Alabama. Yeah, the whole world got to see just how bad their defense is, and that's after just giving up boatloads at Clemson too.
Yeah, and
The Sun Belt East is wide open. I just settled on them by default. I saw them as flawed, but less flawed than everybody else because they had the best quarterback. But between them being so bad and Alonzo Barnett just torching a whatever, we're not sure, North Carolina team, that Sun Belt East it's interesting. You've got what was supposed to be the best team has issues. JMU seriously has some talent. Who knows how much over the season? You've got rebuilding Georgia State. Georgia Southern is just full Clay Helton. They absolutely suck. Old Dominion is just they're stuck in Old Dominion lower middle class. That East and Marshall, okay, I don't want to relive all of last year and just say, hey, Charles Huff ain't my guy. I'll just keep it at that. That East is, I don't know. It's either going to be JMU running away or just absolute a lesser version of the ACC.
yeah, that was really funny because that was one of my first bets of the week because obviously it was the first game of the week. I look it up and my model had South Alabama like massive favorites, and I'm like, that's weird. I'm getting +7, and I was like, cool, I'll take that and the spread, and it was done by the end of the first quarter. I think it was just done. It's cool. I
Yeah.
won. Awesome, and it's cool when you just win. You're like, hey, what's happening in that game? You look at your phone, you're like, cool, I won. But no, and again, that is one of the reasons why I'm not the most sold on Clemson. I just think they're merely okay. But merely okay might be enough to win the ACC here, right? That might be enough. But no, like the fact that people were like, "Oh wow, Clemson offensive explosion against App State," and then okay, then offensive explosion against NC State. South Alabama also had a massive offensive explosion against App State, which raises a lot of questions about App State specifically.
You know what? No, I don't think I have any questions. I'm pretty settled on what they are. They stink.
Yes.
Speaking of stink, whatever whatever remnants or residue of Jerry Kill was at New Mexico State are completely gone. They have the second worst offense in all of FBS by my metrics. But congratulations on that big 31-11 loss at Sam Houston. Really good job there, guys. And staying in Conference USA, Skylar Locklear, I don't understand what this guy was doing. That I was high on that coach coming over from Austin P. Brought a lot of players. In my opinion, he brought one too many because he brought this guy Skylar Locklear with a 47 apex this year. I don't know why he's doing that. Cade McConnell was really good. I actually liked UTEP coming in with the new guy and a proven quarterback who would be one of the absolute best in the conference. And I just don't get it. I don't know. Just maybe we should call this episode "Coaches Don't Understand Quarterbacks" or just something like that. It's just the theme of part one here. But man, just a couple of really just I don't know. New Mexico State, that was just a matter of time. But a real pick me up. Two real bad stories of Conference USA to end part one.
Yes.
And with that, Robert, that will be the end of part one. Even when my team loses in a very heartbreaking fashion, thank you, college football, for being the most awesome sport that we've ever known. Thank you for tuning in, viewing, whatever. Catch us in part two when we preview week 5. Until then, thank you.
See ya.